What About Vietnam? A podcast with Gary Newsom. The series where Curry talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin chào and welcome to What About Vietnam? Who's ever been on a holiday and come home and thought, I wonder what it would be like to live in that country? You've had such a great time and you've come home and you've kind of considered what it would be like for a real change up in lifestyle. Meg Lay is my guest on the show today. And Meg and her husband had been travelling for a couple of years around the globe and had kind of got a bit over the backpacker thing. So they decided to come back to their home in Seattle, unpack, rent out their home and go back to Vietnam and settle there for maybe 1 or 2 years. So they did this just prior to the pandemic, unfortunately. So they've been there about a year and a half. So giving up corporate lives for a small community town like Hoi An, beautiful beaches, lovely community, the old world heritage site township, just a really divine little town in Vietnam. So easy choice, I would think, if you wanted a lifestyle shift. Meg comes to the program with definitely a wellness bent. She is a wellness coach in yoga and Pilates, and did her study in India. Her corporate background includes being an FTE consultant and business consultant. She's worked in some really high-end startups in the US, and including working in Geneva with the WHO organization. They both came to Hoi An with an open mind. So in this program, we're really going to unpack the process that they went to make the decision to go there. So we really delve into some details. So if you've ever had any aspirations about moving to Vietnam to maybe retire, semi-retire, or maybe only just live for big chunks of time, this would definitely be the episode for you to listen to really get some detail, because, you know, you've actually got to sometimes experience this kind of thing to find out the nuances that, you know, any guidebook just won't have it, because you have to live it to know it. And certainly Meg is a fabulous guest today as she really unravels some of the detail that you wouldn't even think about. They came across an amazing opportunity, and it came through something really simple but absolutely divine. And Meg's going to explain that story, but it all starts with a bagel. I hope you'll welcome Meg to the program. You're in for a real treat. Let's welcome her to the program. Meg, welcome to the What About Vietnam podcast. Lovely to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Carrie. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
If you'll let me, I want to kind of start right back from the beginning and just say, was Vietnam, with your first visit, was it like love at first sight? You just went to Vietnam and just went, oh my God, love this place?
Kind of. So I do have the background of my husband is Viet Q. So we've been together over 20 years. So I've been exposed to the Vietnamese culture for a long time. So the language, the foods. And so I always obviously had an interest, and actually that's my last name is Vietnamese. I used to be Irish, but now I have a last name that's Vietnamese, which is kind of cool living here. So the first time I visited was, I think, what was it, 2010, which is the first time that my husband David's parents returned to Vietnam after leaving the country. So it was such a great opportunity, and I came with them. It was just a vacation, And that was a good, first introduction into what the cities were and the country was. And it felt actually kind of familiar. So the little things that I had experienced with David's family, like idiosyncrasies or just traditions with culture, felt like, oh, now I kind of get it. So I visited here just as a tourist a while ago. And then when my husband and I were traveling, we quit our jobs. We had corporate jobs in Seattle, quite established, and we wanted to change. So we quit those. We grabbed our dog. We did a little road trip around the U.S. for a while. And then when our dog passed away, we wanted to go traveling. So we became 40-year-old backpackers, which was kind of not the intention, because we kind of missed that backpacking experience in our 20s and 30s. So we traveled for a while, and traveling is great. And gosh, because of this pandemic, thank God we did that before this all started, because we did about 2 years of travel. And so then after a while of being like, okay, we're sick of living out of a backpack. We would like to sit down and, be able to unpack, fry an egg, sleep in the same spot for a while. We were trying to figure out where to go. So I led my husband through a very nerdy MBA Venn diagram brainstorming session. And we were trying to think of what are the criteria.
I've got one of those.
Yeah, I love those. It's helpful for decision making. So we were looking for a place that was affordable, that had delicious cuisine, because we love food, that had good business opportunities and was friendly to Americans coming in and establishing residency and potentially starting businesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did kind of a pros and cons list. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then did you kind of put places next to, did you have a list of pros and cons for this? In other words, what I'm trying to get to is, what did you compare Vietnam to as, alternatives? So,
well, we were comparing to, multiple places that met those criteria that we were looking for. We wanted a warm climate, kind of various things of when we were thinking, what kind of lifestyle do we have and do we want to have? So we actually made a list of various places, and Hoi An was the first place that we visited when we were in our trek of trying places on for size. And to answer your question, was it love at first sight? Yes, I had visited before, but never with the lens of, could I actually live here, right? So that's very different of coming as a tourist versus, do I want to live here? So I can say that the first place we visited, we said, okay, this is where we're going to go. And we actually never even tested out those other places. So it was kind of love at first sight.
Okay. But Hoi An in particular, not Vietnam as a country, you actually kind of singled out the location of Hoi An, because I mentioned that only because it's not really fair. I hope you'll agree. It's not really fair to kind of brand all cities the same in Vietnam. And in particular, Hoi An is quite unique to other cities. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I would actually use the word town, right? When you think of city, you think of Hanoi or Saigon. And we'd lived in cities before, and we just wanted something a little bit more quiet, a place that you could bike across. Sounds kind of funny, but is it so overwhelming? Like, we even looked at Da Nang and we visited and we're like, this is too big. We need something quieter. So I think it is unique because it has the ancient heritage side of things, the old town, but it also has the beach, which everyone loves the beach, plus the rice fields. So I feel like it's a great mix of culture and rural living, outside our house. Every day we watch the cows go by, and then having that beach lifestyle. So I think it is actually kind of unique. And I think a lot of people who live in the cities always vacation in Central, and then their dream is to always retire here if they're working in the city, because it seems like this is where people come to retire. And in some ways, that's absolutely true, no matter what age you are.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you're saying retiring. I think that kind of leads to the description of Hoi An as being a little bit laid back. It's very community focused. So you get to know your neighbors and everything's a bit cruisier. There's not kind of that hubba, hubba, hubba
No.
that, there is, be it that there's still motorbikes. There's motorbikes everywhere. But, I think Hoi An just has that little bit of nice chill. But, you can retire there as a digital nomad. You can retire there as somebody, 50, 60, 70. You don't have to be any age to choose that kind of lifestyle. And I think that was kind of something that you and I talked about once before that we both resonated to. And I think that's what a lot of people find attractive when they go. But now we're going to get a little bit deeper into the process that it entails. So just from that decision in deciding, okay, Hoi An is where you want to move to, talk to us a little bit about the process from Seattle to Hoi An, and maybe give us a little detail on, how long and what some of the steps that you took to kind of crystallize it. So, yep, this is actually going to happen. We're going to be able to do this.
Process does involve, getting your ducks in a row. Like, how are you going to make money? Do you need to make money? How much money actually do you need to make? And that's like a big mind change, I think, coming from, I had to make this much money to live in a place like Seattle, and you actually spend a lot of money, but you have to make a lot of money, right? To a place like Hoi An, where we actually we're very lucky to use our rental from Seattle to the proceeds from that to fund our life in Hoi An, which is absolutely insane when you kind of think about it. If you have a corporate life, you could be spending $10,000 a month on various things, mortgage, car, all those things. And then here we actually aren't really making very much money, but that's okay because the life is so affordable. So figuring out your money is key, right? You don't want to just show up whatever age you're at and expect the country and kind of to take care of you. So you have to show up with a certain amount of funding, I think. But Hoi An offers a very high quality of life based on your expenses, and I've heard that from various people who have lived all over the world. So that's what really makes it attractive for us and keeps us staying here.
So did you know for sure that you would be accepted by Vietnam through immigration? Like, talk to us about, just that process dealing with, because I get asked a lot, should I use an immigration broker? There's consultancies out there that offer services in this area and, of course, charge for that. Some of them are very legitimate and some of them are not so legitimate.
Right.
And otherwise, do you go directly and, just what is the process, yes, I think, of acceptance in Vietnam for people considering to move there?
Right now, so I can talk pre-COVID and current situation.
Excellent.
So I came in November 2019, so before the pandemic started. And it was super easy. So as an American, you can get a 1 year. Okay, let me rephrase. As an American, you used to be able to get a 1 year tourist visa, no problem. So we came in with those 1 years. Then we thought, that's plenty of time. We can figure out the business landscape, figure out what we want to do, and then, kind of take it from there. Of course, things changed a lot. And the current situation is no one's getting in on a tourist visa. I'm hoping that's changing very soon. So the past 2 years have been about the people that came in on tourist visas have been kind of chasing and trying to understand the various changing rules. So it's been a struggle for even just the people living here trying to understand what the rules are. So right now, only experts are getting in. So if you are an investor, if you have an investor visa, or you have some sort of special
skill set.
Skill set. Yeah. But, the airports have been closed. So very limited flights. Now it's, beginning of October, 2021? Yeah. So things are starting to open up again. So I hope that's going to be changing soon. And as we get more vaccines. So it's really hard to say what the current situation is, just that right now you cannot come in as a tourist to the country. The borders have been closed for almost 2 years.
So this 1 year, this was still a tourist visa.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a residence visa.
Correct.
Because most countries are only allowed up to 3 months, so 90 days. And you can, if you leave the country, you can reapply and come back in. And, many people chose to do that in the years prior to COVID. But there is a great flurry of people out there that left and really want to come back once COVID is under control.
Absolutely.
But like you say, what are the rules going to be? So this is an interesting landscape. And, we agreed, you and I, that we might do another podcast, say in 6 months' time, when the rules might be much clearer and we can talk about the changes that have gone on. And I think that'd be a great idea for my listeners too. So really you started with 1 year and that was kind of your year to establish opportunities, whether you like it, and just see, as you say, just how well your spreadsheets worked on your financial management.
Yep.
Whether you could do and whatever. So talk to us about some of the, and it doesn't matter how small the detail, because I think people actually want the small detail. It kind of gets, when we think about that move, people just say, oh, we just did this, but people want to go, well, what did you actually have to do? And I think any detail that you can offer is really going to help people with this decision, certainly for the future.
Back to the agent thing, because hopefully it will be very relevant very soon. You can just, I think I used, it's like Vietnam e-visa or something like that online, where there's all these sites and you're just like, wow, is this site from 1998? Is this legit? Okay, it turns out to be legit. So it's just an easy way basically to get your letter to come in. But it was that coming in initially as a tourist is not a problem.
You can, just prior to COVID, you could do this by an e-visa, and you were dealing directly through the immigration department of Vietnam.
Okay.
So that's all same kind of thing. But yes, there were VIP agents and all those kinds of things. You don't need them. And you didn't need a letter anymore. The e-visa was to do away with the letter. Some people, there was mass confusion with that letter. Let me assure you that people brought the wrong one and didn't have their name on it and all sorts of things. And that's kind of why technology finally came of age and they produced the e-visa opportunity. So you kind of had to start from your country of origin and then find out what was applicable to you. And I'm sure, absolutely 100% sure, that that's going to get even more complex as people have to produce their evidence of vaccination to come into the country.
Absolutely.
And proof of that and identification of that, I think, is going to be integral. But putting all that aside, on the visa side of things, because that's kind of a work in process, talk to us about, how did you plan what to bring, what to leave at home? did you let your house out? Oh, I think you said you did let your
Rented
house
it, yes.
rent
correct.
it out. Yeah. So talk about, I know people that arrived with 50 kgs and that was kind of it, and they grew from there. I don't know. Was that you, or did you bring more?
We came with very little because we had been traveling in our backpacks for a while. And so we had
Expert travelers.
expert, yes. So coming in light is always a good idea. Because in general, you can always get everything, right? Hoi An is definitely a simpler life, which I think is one of the joys about living here, is that, depending on where you're from or what your life was like before, you probably had a household full of stuff. In Hoi An, it's not really about that. Most of the houses here are like 100% furnished, right? So there are some things, and I remember asking this on forums when I was moving here. I'm like, what do I need to bring? One thing that people definitely bring in would be like, specialty, like personal products, like makeups or that type of thing, or linens. Quality linens are quite a luxury here. So yeah, but besides that, you're going to basically find everything you need. And Hoi An is the tailoring capital of the world. So you don't need to bring in, 1,000 kgs of clothes, because clothes are definitely not a problem here. And you can get nice stuff made that's tailored to yourself. So yeah, coming in light is definitely key, because you don't really need too much here.
And can you talk to us a little bit about just the cooking side of things?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you and I would have been brought up with kitchens that had every single electrical buzzing device, from juicers to ovens to microwaves to whatever, where Vietnam kitchens tend to be fairly what I'd call minimalistic.
Mm-hmm. That's a good adjective.
And attitudinally, I think, I don't know whether it's your experience, but I think attitudinally, people don't always feel the need to cook because they can go out and eat so cheaply. So out of 7 days a week, where I traditionally have had to cook and maybe go out on a specialty night, people just think the normal thing is to just go out probably 3 or 4 nights a week and just get something from a street vendor, or, because there's so much cheap and cheerful food. Why would you bother slaving over a hot stove? Don't have the convection ovens or the, all of that sort of stuff. It's just too hot.
It is very hot. Yeah. So
talk to us about the culinary side of things, Meg.
Well, one of the reasons I picked, Vietnam was the food, right? So it's a rich culture of food. I would say Central Vietnam is not my favorite cuisine, but Hoi An, if your listeners love banh mi or banh mi, some people say, banh mi. This is the home of the best banh mi in the world, based on, because it's a certain type of water that they use for the bread, and then actually they use for the noodles as well. So even if you go to the city, you're not going to get as good as banh mi as you get in Hoi An, and that's going to cost you at Banh Mi Phung, which is the Anthony Bourdain place that used to have ridiculous lines out the door. Well, now you're the only one there. That's going to be $25,000. Yeah, which is about $1 US. So yeah, street food in abundance. People have
cheap
food stalls in the bottom of their house. So getting food is never a problem. So we don't really cook. Well, it depends. Sometimes we cook at home. We actually just got a microwave, which is very exciting. That I just microwaved something for the first time in 2 years. And I was like, ooh, this is easy. I've never been so happy to have a microwave. So you do appreciate small things when you live in Hoi An. The only thing with not cooking at home, since Hoi An is such a sleepy town, if you have not eaten by 9 p.m., you're out of luck. You're really, really out of luck. More like 8 p.m. And especially with typhoon season or, times where there's no tourists like now. There's just not as many options. So I would say people are trying to get a little bit more in their kitchen to be able to cook at home if you're kind of stuck in there for a while. But there's so much delicious stuff out there.
Yeah. But it was interesting. Some people have said to me, oh, I've got my special baking dish and I've got my, certain, cooking utensils. And I'll say, you'll never use them. You might use them once in a blue moon, you might use them. And once you get a taste for Vietnamese food, and there's so much fresh fruits and vegetables that you can also buy in the markets very cheaply. That,
all year long, too.
All year long, absolutely. And I think it's that eco change, isn't it? It's a real head shift for your typical urbanized commercial dweller in a big city.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, when people are looking for, back to houses, I said how things are furnished here. Everything's, like the fridge is small and lots of places don't have hot water in the kitchen. Your vent on your stove might actually not vent out to the outside. Just like quirky things, you just kind of get used to them. But yeah, it's like I said, it's about, does it have an address so I can get packages delivered?
See, that's gold.
Yes.
Does it have an actual address?
Yep. These are the things I didn't even know when I was looking for a house. But does it flood? That's a big thing, right? Is it on a main street where you can actually, if you're lucky enough to get a taxi, can they pull up in front of your door versus having to wind through these tiny little alleys? Being on a main street is a big thing. And when you get things delivered, can you actually get it to your door?
Yeah. Very important.
The whole, the all important karaoke. What's the situation? Do you have a big coffee shop that's next to you that likes to play techno music? So, does your house mold? So looking for signs of mold, right? And now we're just entering typhoon season. So, maybe back where you're from, you're more concerned about aesthetics, but here it's super practical. And do you have a good landlord, right? Because you can get really screwed over by some landlords who, don't fix things or whatever. But we got really lucky by finding all of those things, and our landlords live next door. And so when there's a problem, they come and fix it. So I would say if when you're coming in and you're looking for a place, yes, cute is great, but going for practicality is really, really important, because I know so many people who constantly change houses, and we've been here 2 years and haven't changed houses, which I think is actually kind of rare.
That is rare. And that's really, having your head on straight when you were choosing the place with those things in mind. If I could just add to that 2 things, Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, is kind of, or has become quite a serious aspect of choice in, because I can remember going and you couldn't get Wi-Fi in Hoi An until they put up all those crazy wires that you see twisted around trees and all the rest of it, which is the wonderful Wi-Fi system that now works. It was a big deal because, it affected so many things. So Wi-Fi and good Wi-Fi into your building, is it coming from the street?
Very important.
How far away is it coming from? And electricity is another.
Yeah, power cuts.
Power. How old is the power system? And then the other, can I just say, absolute final is air conditioning.
Oh, yes. Really, really important. Hoi An is really hot. And our first year in this house we had, which is pretty typical. You'll have, if you're a Westerner looking at a place, there'll be air conditioning units in the bedrooms. Pay attention to the star rating, right? And the Vietnamese love to leave stickers on all their appliances. So you can see the 5-star energy. And if it's like a 1.5, 2-star, you're going to be paying a lot for your electricity and your room won't be cooled. So our first year we were trying to figure out like, how do you cool the rest of your house through the bedroom with like a fan system? Doesn't work. But this year, because it was so hot that first year, we stopped cooking, talking about heating in the kitchen. You know, you lose weight because you stop cooking. But this year we asked for air conditioning, and luckily our landlords put a unit in the main area, which is really, really key if you want to be able to have a decent summer here.
Yeah. And one aspect that has kind of just crept in more of recent times when I've spoken to people is security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where, like in years gone by, you know, people used to say, oh, like, you know, leave the door open and nobody ever bothers us or whatever, or they've got a pet and, you know, everyone kind of, but pets have gone missing. People have broken into homes much more. And I think it's indicative of just some of the struggles over the last 18 months.
Absolutely. Overall, Vietnam and Hoi An are very safe places to be. If you've traveled in, for example, Latin America or Europe or the US, where I'm from, comparatively, it's really, really nothing. If you're a dog or a cat here, you're going to have something more violent happening to you than a person. You know, in the cities, you might get your phone stolen. But here it's really, it's more at the beaches. It's people will, you know, leave their phone like in their motorbike and park. Well, that's not very smart because everyone has like the same keys for their motorbikes and they're really easy to break into. So it's basic stuff like, you know, not bringing important things with you around, making sure you lock your house, making sure you have security cameras, good lighting, all those different things. And then in general, it really just seems to be the beach. Like An Bang residents complain a lot more than people who live like us in the rice fields. We haven't actually heard of any issues, but so knock on wood, we've been quite lucky, but that is an issue.
Yes. And as I said, I had people living near the rice fields, as you say, and they had it, you know, they have I've got two friends there. One's left, but the other is still there. And it's a lovely home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very open. You know, the kitchen is half outside and half inside.
Yep.
You know, and that's not a typical style for a Western home. But, you know, it's done really well.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, just that openness of and door latches not there and things like that, you know, it was the first thing I saw when I went there and thought, jeepers, you know, like I'd have to do that. And they say, oh, Kerry, you know, if you come and live here, you'll be fine. You go, but that would be a kind of a change in my headset to do that with just, you know, just something as small as that, latches on doors and things like that.
Yeah, because like I said, it's so safe here. It of course, you can become complacent and gives you a false sense of security. And definitely around, you know, definitely the poverty thing you mentioned with the pandemic, but also around Tet is a time where people start to need more money because they want to have their parties and give gifts to their family. And so that's a time where crime can go up. Small, petty crime, not violent
crime.
crime.
Petty crime. Yes, exactly. And a lot of people say, you know, I'm worried that I can't speak the Vietnamese language. I mean, you are a little bit of a step of that, I guess, with some familiarization with your husband and his family.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know, he can kind of step through that a little bit better than most. But I as a tourist, and I have long stays, so I think like I'm a part-time resident.
Mm-hmm.
But I can get away with it. But I wonder if I lived there, whether or not having some better understanding of the language, because it's a difficult language to master. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, and is that an obstacle?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Hoi An being a traditional tourist town, a decent amount of people will know some basic English, like numbers and greetings and that type of thing. Like anywhere, you know, locals always appreciate if you make an effort, even just the smallest amount. I think because my husband speaks Vietnamese, and he's not even like completely fluent, right? He grew up speaking it, but he's been learning to read and write here. I get lazy and I rely on him, and I'm kind of ashamed about it. I did sign up for 2 lessons, and then I was like, "This is too hard," and I quit. So that's kind of embarrassing.
I'd be right there with you. I have to admit it. I'm dreadful. I really make an idiot of
It's
myself,
tough.
and I feel embarrassed.
It's tough. But just asking questions and learning like a word a day can really be helpful. I think starting with things like food can very helpful. Like you want to be able to read the signs. There's such a food culture. And I mentioned how there's restaurants everywhere. If you know how to, know the basic words for noodle and rice and the different types of meats and what vegan means, all those different things, even if you start there and can say some numbers and ask how much, you'll be in a good spot.
Yes. And always greetings, even just to say thank you. Everybody kind of remembers Xin Chao because it's, the welcome.
Mhm.
But, to remember just how to say thank you, that they get surprised at people, even knowing how to say that.
Yes. And then one note about Hoi An and specifically is that they actually kind of say that they don't speak Vietnamese, they speak Quang Nam, right? So Quang Nam is kind of like, I'd say, like the Kentucky of the United States, as Quang Nam is to Vietnam. So just like sometimes garbled words, you don't hear all the enunciation. It's not a different dialect. It's just a different way. They literally pronounce words and vowels very differently.
Yes.
So, yeah.
There's nothing you can figure out yourself logically. It's an illogical language, including the way they put their names. They always put their last name first or their first name.
Yep.
And how many times when I've, been even doing this podcast and I'm talking to someone or someone's going to come on the show and I'm going, oh, which one of those is the first name?
Yeah,
I
usually the
don't
last
want to
one.
get that wrong.
The last.
Yeah, but sometimes they have 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's good.
It's confusing.
It is confusing. Being the devil of detail as I am, just getting down to tin tacks, then describe your life as now, you're definitely a year on, you're over your year and you've started a business there. Talk to us just how that process came about and how that opportunity and, you've got some work aspirational things coming up as well for you. I think it is fantastic. So the oyster is starting to really open, isn't it? Even despite the pandemic, because you're doing yoga teaching and Pilates and all that sort of stuff.
So I came in to Hoi An. I had just done some Pilates and yoga teacher training. And if you've ever been to Bali, especially like Ubud area, it's like a big wellness area. And so when I visited Hoi An, I thought, you know what? I feel like this could be similar but different, like a big spot for wellness in Southeast Asia. So that was my original idea when coming here. And that has changed because, there's 2 markets here. There's the local market, local Vietnamese, and then the local foreigners that live here. And with such a low cost of living, the cost of services are quite low. So a thing like a wellness center, which I was originally thinking of, I was like, well, especially with no tourists, it just doesn't make sense, right? So I've had to pivot that a little bit. So I've continued to teach. I have a little Pilates studio in my house. So I made a little home studio. I have a reformer and all those different things. And so I do one-on-one and I teach group classes at the gym. So I've kind of put that on hold. I do think that Vietnam could be or Hoi An could be a great wellness area in the future for both domestic tourists and foreign tourists. But, here is a place where there's low barrier to entry for starting a business in some ways, because it doesn't cost very much. And it's really about the simple life, and if you want something, you kind of have to create it. So we actually wound up starting a restaurant and bar here. And it started from my husband saying, I want a bagel. And there was no bagels, or good bagels, I would say. So we started making them at home. And then from there, he was just doing a little home baking business, which is very easy to do here. There's no real regulations on that. So there are tons of people who just start something and sell it through Facebook. Facebook community is very important here, for good or bad. But when he wanted to expand it, he was open to opportunities. And our neighbor across the pool that we share a little complex with, had a restaurant that wasn't doing so great. And she needed some fresh eyes and some fresh energy and some dong. So in speaking to her about, how to expand, the opportunity was there. So he wound up partnering with, her name is Lan, and she's from Hanoi. And then they have since launched Veranda, which is in An Bang. And that's really turned out to be quite the community spot. So he wasn't really planning on working. He decided to start a little bagel business, and then that turned into a restaurant. And we actually just recently navigated the system of getting our investor paperwork finalized. So we're no longer on tourist visas. So we have a lot more security there, because we're minor shareholders on paper of this Vietnamese corporation. So that's where we spend a lot of our time. But there's, this is just such a place where you're just like, if you want something, you kind of make it happen. So there are lots of opportunities. And if you've come from a place where you've traveled a lot and you can easily see gaps in the market, you can, throw something out there, market test it quick, fail fast. And if it doesn't work, you kind of just move on. But that's really the way you have to go, versus if you're, planning on coming here to find a job. That's a big thing, is that people think, I want to move to Hoi An, I'm going to get a job. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
And, I would have said that was difficult to do even pre-COVID,
Mm-hmm.
but I think post-COVID, it'll be even worse.
Yeah.
And I think that Vietnam will want to get their own population re-employed over a foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's you or I and a foreigner who can, and a local that can do the same job, he or she's going to get it over us, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Because they need their own people to be employed.
Absolutely.
And, just coming out of lockdown in Saigon, I was talking to Michael Tatarsky last week, and his show went up today. But he was saying how the city is going to experience a labour shortage,
mm-hmm.
because so many of the workers left the city.
Yep.
Now it's opened up and everybody's gone, woo, it's opened up. But there isn't enough people now to work in the hotels and to work in, these businesses. So there's going to be quite a clambering of the labour force to see where they flow to, and just from a wellness perspective, just how they flow based on their health and well-being. In other words, are they fully vaccinated or not vaccinated? And, their age group, can they bring their whole family? Where are they going to live? How are they going to afford to live? And, all of those things are going to have to start up again for all those people. And they reckon there could be like 30 or 40,000 in that boat that are kind of wandering Vietnam after the COVID lockdown in Saigon. So,
mm-hmm.
and I was talking to someone in Hoi An, and they were saying that they think that there'll be a lot coming to Hoi An. And there was a little bit of nervousness around them coming into the Quang Nam province, given that
we've been in this
COVID-free.
Yeah, we've been in this, I don't know, this magical bubble.
Hope you stay that way.
Yeah. But I do know that people, are kind of going back to their provinces because, they might have had a job in the city, but that job has gone away, or, and so they're coming back here. And I think last weekend, there were a bunch of buses that came in. So that's definitely happening in the Hoi An area too. So, we'll kind of see what happens, but they are starting to vaccinate here this week, which is really, really great news, because they're vaccinating in the country, in the cities, but there was radio silence on Hoi An getting vaccines. So there's a little, sign of hope for all of us. That's really exciting.
Was there considerations given, Meg, to, how you would manage, your health through like health insurance or, did you give those kind of things consideration in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, coming from a country where your health insurance is tied to your job, if you leave your job and you leave your country, there goes your insurance, right?
Exactly.
So we did have travel insurance for a while. I can't remember who the provider was. And it wasn't that cheap, right? It was maybe it was like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
But here locally, I use Bao Viet, BAO Viet, and it's basically, there's of course different plans, but you can get it for inpatient, outpatient. And we just renewed and we got, which is crazy, a 15% decrease on our premium this year because we had no claims.
Incidents.
Yeah. So we got incentivized for that. So that cost about $5 million for two of us. And we are, healthy, no pre-existing conditions, young 40s. So really not that much, but that's something like that is more for, do you have to stay overnight in the hospital? My husband got in a motorbike wreck, not his fault, last year. But he had a quick visit to the local hospital here, got an x-ray, got a little soft cast, that type of thing. I think it cost him about $1 million, and that was just paid out of pocket. So it's always a good idea to have at least some insurance for inpatient stuff, like if something happens and you have to have surgery and stay in the hospital. So it's not that expensive. So definitely something to consider if you live here. And I think it depends on your country, right? Like I said, from the US, you're out of luck. I have no other insurance, right? But maybe if you're from a different country, you could always fly back and get supported by some universal socialist health care. But not really here.
As you say, it's more of a consideration for people with pre-existing conditions of any kind. I've had friends of mine, that have ended up having back injuries and quite serious back injuries. And because they likewise changed their lifestyle, they would never have ridden a motorbike where they came from.
Oh, yeah, me either.
But all of a sudden they're,
you have to.
You're getting around on a motorbike and you probably are being a little bit not I won't say reckless, but I'll just say maybe a little bit carefree, and these little things happen, and they get stuck. And I've certainly known a lot of young people too that they're having just such a great time that their consciousness around being careful on motorbikes has led to some atrocious accidents with lots of damage. So, yeah, I think health will be something in the future because people coming to Vietnam to live are going to have to weigh all those things up more seriously than they have had prior to COVID. And that's mainly due to the fact also that the hospital system in Vietnam at the moment is like totally overrun. It's it's cactus. It's going to take a long time to recover, and I think there's going to be some new initiatives that come out of that, or I hope so at least. But for the short term, and I'm saying 22, 23, if I was wanting to come to Vietnam to take up some opportunity to, or I just wanted to come back or whatever, these are some of the things that we're talking about now that I think you would need to consider.
Right, because when I came here, you always think, okay, well, if I need something, because the healthcare in Vietnam in general is not great, but Hoi An especially is notoriously not good. But then, we were like, oh, I'll just go to Da Nang if I need to. Well, maybe not, because they cut off all roads, right? Or you're not actually allowed to go to the hospital, right? Or you'd be like, oh, I just fly to Bangkok if I need something. Oh, that's not happening either. So it is a much more of a consideration, especially if you have, existing issues, right? That's something to weigh about whether or not this would be the time and place to come to a place like Hoi An if you
Exactly.
need something.
Yes, exactly. Did you find dealing with the authoritative agencies around your business setup and all of that kind of all came together, or was it difficult? Or
It's been very confusing because I think it was kind of confusing to begin with, but then add in a pandemic and a change in government, which things always change with rules when there's a change in government every 5 years. And then the way that communication flows down, from the federal level, and then the province levels have their own rules, and navigating that has been a really big challenge. And that is with, my husband having decent Vietnamese skills and his business partner being Vietnamese. So yeah, it's a challenge. You have to be patient. We actually wound up founding a good agent here in the Hoi An area. And like I said, we did successfully get our investor visas. So that's really good. But just having patience and having someone, especially if you don't speak Vietnamese, to help you with the language is really, really key. Yeah. And everything just takes a lot longer. On the flip side, you always say in Vietnam, there's always a way if you're in Vietnam, right? Just based on how everything is set up, you have to just find the right person. So that's definitely part of it as well.
Absolutely.
This is a beach lifestyle. And so I don't necessarily think that it's all of Vietnam. If you go to the cities, I'm sure it's different. So I've never lived in any other place except Hoi An, but it's just one of those things. It's like, just got to relax, right? Which is actually quite a good life lesson, I think, depending on where you've come from, right? If you're expecting efficiency and things to be really clear, well, you better just toss it out the window and go with the flow.
What out of 10 would you give it as a good place to move to, as you say, for a change in lifestyle and semi-retirement?
I think it depends, always depends on your age, what kind of life you want, what kind of speed you're looking for. One thing I can say, so I've been in a committed partnership for 20 years, and being here is great. The single people who are younger struggle here. Because if you're trying to find someone and there's no tourists coming through, or, you're trying to find, even just not even just someone to marry, just someone to date for long-term, that's a real struggle. But as a partner or someone who's not looking for someone, maybe, very, very different experience. If you're, like I said, trying to find a job, that's definitely not a place for here to move to. I have heard, if you have children, it can be a struggle in some ways. In some ways, great, right? Because, there's some really good international schools here. But on the other hand, you might have trouble finding kids the same age and parents you vibe with that you can kind of put them all together. So for me, at this point in my life where I am, kind of semi-retired and I'm trying to learn to chill out, it's great. For me, I would say for now, it's a 9. I can never give it a 10 because I don't like how I always feel like I'm going to die when I get on a motorbike. Or, the culture of dog and cat pet theft and violence is personally difficult for me. But I don't know, 9 out of 10, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Look, I could talk all afternoon with you, Meg, about what I need to know and what everyone should know about moving to Vietnam and changing from a tourist to a resident. But I think your points across the board have been really great, and I hope my listeners have got a lot out. I'm sure they have. Any last pointers that we want to close out with that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think, whether you're moving to Hoi An or different place, different city, or wherever you're headed, it's just always, come in with an open mind and be open to opportunities. Because a place, may look a certain way on YouTube, or you might get a certain perspective from a friend who's lived in Hoi An. But really, until you get here, you don't know what it's, going to be like. And so I would just say, be open to opportunities, meet lots of people. Don't pack a big bag.
Don't pack a big bag.
Yes.
Think minimalistic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Meg, for being on the
Sure.
show. I really appreciated your time. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Yes. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?